Hi, this is Louise Manning here, Professor of Agri-Food and Supply Chain Security at the Royal Agricultural University. And this is the next in a series of videos that are looking at contemporary themes around food and food supply chains. And today we're going to talk about data-driven leadership. This particular video builds on the previous one that we did on how data drives decision making. And we're going to look particularly at how data informs the mission and values of the organisation, and most specifically, you as a leader. So we're going to consider data-driven leadership, or alternatively, leadership in a digital world. We're going to use the World Economic Forum's definition of digital leadership. And when we think about leadership, we also have to consider at the same time the area of followership, because the two cannot be separated. We need to think about where leadership sits. In the communities that are evolving, both in business and in the wider world, leadership is no longer seen as hierarchical. Leadership is seen as involving participation, involvement, and contribution from everyone, a more democratic process. So when we think about digital leadership, an element of it is about how we empower others to lead, how we create self-organized teams that can optimize day-to-day operations. So rather than having a clear hierarchical structure and driving leadership and followership through that structure, we allow individuals to consider what their own personal attributes are in terms of the followership and leadership that they can deliver within an organisation. Whilst the concept of data-driven or digital leadership has been gaining ground over recent years, the fact that we are now in a truly uncertain world has brought those theories and ideas right to the fore. The world we are in today is uncertain, and many individuals and communities struggle with living within that uncertainty and complexity. As business leaders, we seek to address a whole range of contemporary and historic issues as we look to the impact of coronavirus on our businesses and wider communities, and as we consider the challenges of climate change, population growth, and ensuring equity within society. All of these aspects impact on how we as leaders drive the mission and values of the organisations that we serve. Not only can we consider a data-driven, evidence-driven leadership, we can also consider leadership based on values. How do we communicate the values of the organisation, both inside and outside the business? How do we develop engagement and buy-in with those values, not only from the people that work for that business, but also all the actors and stakeholders that surround it? How does a digital information system drive values-based leadership? Now, this video cannot answer all of those questions. It's merely posing those questions so that we can then develop some reasoned debate. But what lies at the heart of values-based leadership, and indeed leadership driven through evidence and data, is a foundation of ethics, respect, honesty, and integrity. So as we consider how we use data as leaders, we can think about the wider development of smart food systems, of being able to collect, analyse, and use data to drive better food supply chains that are using resources more wisely and efficiently, reducing food loss and food waste. but also how we can embed integrity within those supply chains. We need to consider how we as digital leaders provide direction, clarity, and purpose through the use of information and communication. We need to think about how we are building participation and accountability both within our businesses but also with our customers, and how we inform on the economic, environmental, and social impact of some of the decisions and trade-offs that people make. How do we empower people to experiment, innovate, and then execute best practice? How do we use data to build bridges between individuals and communities and the whole supply chain and find solutions? How do we develop people within our businesses so that we can connect and co-develop ideas and solutions? Ultimately, how do we use data to drive agile teams and quick decision making, to drive adaptive capacity and resilience, something we've talked about in previous videos? And how do we address the constant challenge of evolution and reskilling as the world around us changes and we have to pivot our businesses? One of the first questions we have to ask ourselves as data-driven leaders is who is in our team. Our team cannot be siloed into individual departments or sections of our business. Our team, and data will help us to do this, must not only extend across the business, but also bridge across the supply chain and include multiple stakeholders. With multiple challenges as large as climate change, coronavirus, the public health related issues of obesity, also addressing the profligate waste of food in our society, whilst many millions are unable to access a healthy diet. If we are going to address all of these issues as a society, or feel that in the values and missions of our organisation, that the organisation has a role, we need to make sure we have the right team. And to succeed, what makes a right team must be a focus of inclusion rather than exclusion. So let's go back to those three questions again. How do we communicate the value of the organisation, both internally and externally? How do we identify the mission of our organisation? And how do we communicate that so that we can create the right team? How do we develop engagement and buy-in of that team with those values? And how do we use data and a data-based information system to drive values-based leadership? This is much of the work that we're doing in terms of our research right now. And if you'd like to know more, please do get in touch with me, because I'd be happy to share some of our findings. So what are you going to take away from this short video? What does leadership mean to you? How do you answer the question, leadership is? How do you consider the structure of leadership in your business? Is it hierarchical or a shared form of leadership? Going back to some of the previous slides. What does leadership do in your business? How is it executed? And how does leadership deliver in your business? What does good leadership look like? How do you embed the values and mission of your organisation? Would you be described as a business or organisation with ethics, respect, honesty, and integrity? So today in our webinar, we're going to talk about data-driven leadership and members of Farm 491 will be able to access the recording of the webinar if they're not there in person. We're going to continue in the autumn with a further series of videos and webinars around these topic areas. So thank you for listening, and I hope you found it of value.